last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live
from a tiny studio somewhere in North America.
This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host,
the silverback of ufology.
Here's Don Ecker.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Dark Matters Radio. And DMR, of course, is being brought to you exclusively by KGRA Radio, your contact point to the paranormal. And tonight, I have a returning guest and friend, a fellow that I have known for 30 plus years. Over the years, I've interviewed him many times. As a matter of fact, he's got his own show. And he's interviewed me, and of course I'm talking about Mr. Richard C. Hoagland. Now, Dick is the author of a number of books, many papers. His books, and the thing that first introduced me to Richard many years ago was his book, The Monuments of Mars, A City on the Edge of Forever. As a matter of fact, Dick Hoagland was one of the people that brought Mars to the forefront. And of course, another book which is quite astounding is called Dark Mission, The Secret History of NASA. Now, we all know that NASA has its secrets. They like to promo themselves as one of the most open federal bureaucracies. And from my own standpoint, I've got to say, sure. But be that as it may, Richard, welcome back to DMR. How are you?
Hey, Don, it's great being on your show. And how am I? Well, I think we're under assault tonight, and we can get into that a little bit later. I was having a conversation earlier in the week because I was telling him that I was going to be on the show tonight with Robert Stanton, a name I'm sure you know well.
Sure, of course.
And I shared with him our first major adventure. And he was astounded. He'd never heard the story. So for all the new people that you get, and I get, because I put a link up on the other side of midnight to the show tonight, so a lot of my audience are listening to you, why don't you go through our first major adventure vis-a-vis the Brookings Report, because he had no idea, Stanley had no idea you were so deeply involved in the real history of getting at the truth of what's out there.
Well, let's see. At the time, and we're talking about the very early 1990s, I was the director of research for UFO Magazine. UFO Magazine, of course, was a publication that my wife and her partner, Sherry Stark, began in 1986. She
was not your wife then.
I came on board in 1988. And having been a criminal investigator and a detective, I applied those skills and talents to the subject of UFOs and assorted associated phenomena. Now, I guess it was just about 1991, perhaps 92, Dick. I don't quite remember. But you called me at UFO Magazine. And you told me that you and Professor Stan McDaniel were working on a paper to approach NASA once again. They were getting ready for a Mars launch. And
the first
shockingly,
one in 20 years. The first one in 20 years since Viking.
Yeah, shockingly, they had no plans to place any cameras on board. Now, the face on Mars had been major news since the late 70s. So at any rate, you and McDaniel were fighting that. And you guys were working on this paper, and you called me up and you said, "Hey, Don, Stan and I have heard some rumors about a document that had been prepared for the brand new NASA." Now, we're talking about 1960, 1961. NASA was originally just a bunch of guys sitting around a rented desk in a rented building and still finding
it
their
wasn't
feet.
quite that bad. It was a continuation of the old NCAC, which is the aeronautics component, research and development component of the Eisenhower administration. But as we got into space with Sputnik and the Russians and all that, there were people in the government that wanted to update, and Eisenhower was trying to arbitrate between all the military branches, each wanted their own space program. And he ultimately came up with a super agency, NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, to basically keep the branches of the services in their place and to create a civilian agency to go into space. And it was in this ferment that there was this continuing rumor that there was some government report that if we found aliens, we had to keep it secret, meaning the government, because the American people couldn't handle it. And I was looking to someone, an investigator with professional, chops, to go and find this damn document. Because I can't tell you how many times in those early years people said to me, "Well, Hoagland, if there's anything out there, everybody would want to know about it. It'd be a gold card for NASA." And I kept saying, "No, there are reasons to keep it censored." And you were tasked by me with finding the actual evidence.
No, I was asked by you. I wasn't tasked by you. But I immediately...
The difference? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I immediately began doing an investigation. I went through my black book with all the names and people that we have interfaced with at that time.
See, I chose the right professional.
Yeah. I started calling people up and I talked to them, and finally somebody said, "Oh, I think you're talking about the Brookings document, the Brookings Institution." And they gave me some data and statistics and some map references, if you will, where this document was. And I called Richard up and I said, "Well, I think this is it, Dick," and gave it to him. And lo and behold, there it was.
Do you know where I found a physical copy?
I did know, but it kind of slipped my mind.
Well, I had a friend in Little Rock, Arkansas, named Lee Clinton. And before you get all excited, folks, no relation, okay? But Lee was an amateur. He was a ham operator. He was an amateur astronomer. He'd been following my work for some time. And I said to him, as I said to a number of people, "Can you go to the local branch of the National Archives?" Because apparently the National Archives has branches in a lot of major cities in the country. I didn't know that. And I said, "Can you find this report?" And bingo, he found it. He got it Xeroxed. He physically sent it to me. This is before email and all this stuff. And it was exactly what we were looking for, because it was the first time The U.S. government basically said, I'm going to paraphrase, if you find it, meaning NASA, you can't tell anybody about it, meaning ET, extraterrestrial life, because they can't take it. In fact, it said that if NASA revealed this information prematurely, it could, and this is a direct quote, destroy civilization. That was our smoking gun. That's why.
There were actually two groups of people, NASA, or that the powers that be were very concerned about. Number one were fundamentalist religious people, and they're not simply talking about one religion. They're talking about all the religions.
Well, do you know who they were most scared of?
The Christians?
No, the Buddhists. They were terrified in this document of the Buddhists taking this extraterrestrial thing and making a religion out of it that would then overtake terrestrial governments. It's right there in the document, in the footnotes. 1950s, McCarthy.
Yes.
He was scared of a lot of people, besides communists.
Well, and the second group of people were scientists and engineers. They were terrified that if we, in fact, tripped over extraterrestrial life, that they would be so disillusioned by how primitive we were in comparison that that was the other group. Now, you know,
well, let me stop
Dick,
you there.
Do you recall?
Hang on. Let me stop you there. Because when they laid out scientists and how they would be the group most shattered by this news, they made them all sound like religious cultists, because they literally said, again, in the footnotes, which are extraordinarily interesting reading, that they would lose the will to seek new information, new science, push the frontiers, because they would discover that everything they were looking for had already been discovered by ETs, and therefore there was no reason to get up in the morning, to get out of bed. I mean, it was an extraordinary, weird portrayal of science and technology in the United States in the golden age of the 1950s. Astonishing.
Yeah, well, that could have happened perhaps then. I don't think today, but Dick, do you recall what year they said they would undoubtedly come across either artifacts or they would come across perhaps even ET life?
Yes.
At that time, they were talking about 1982.
Well, remember this research went on around 1959.
Right.
It was handed over by the Eisenhower administration to the succeeding administration, the Kennedy administration, which came in, of course, in 1960. Kennedy promptly turned it over to the 87th Congress, which published it, which is how we got wind of this document in the first place. And what was bizarre for any real open scientific inquiry, and you and I talked about this many times, it said something like, although we will not find evidence of extraterrestrial life for the next 20 years. And it's like, how could you put a drop dead date on a discovery of which you have no idea? That, to me, was a dead giveaway, Don, that it was a cover-up in a cover-up in a cover-up masquerading as a scientific study.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. This was one of the things that convinced me at the time, okay, that they have been aware of this phenomena since probably the beginning of what I refer to as the modern UFO age, which was 1947, and perhaps even before that.
Yep.
With the cessation of the Second World War, pilots during missions over Europe and in the Pacific were encountering unusual, unknown flying orbs and objects of some type. And not only the Allied air forces, but the Germans and the Japanese. So, yeah, it's pretty obvious to me, Dick, that this has been around a heck of a long time.
Let me pick up on something you just said, because I think it bears kind of amplification. I think this knowledge has been part of society, part of the oligarchies, part of the ruling elites, part of the U.S. government for a lot longer than World War II and 1947. Because you're forgetting one thing that we've also been tracking over the succeeding decades. I've been looking at this stuff with the help of you and many, many other people. We found a huge ritual symbolic component drawn directly from Freemasonry and the archetypal symbols of Freemasonry, which indicates to me that, and this is all through NASA, and we also now found it in a lot of other U.S. government agencies as well as overseas, it indicates to me that the secret societies have texts or documents or holy books, whatever you want to call them, sacred scrolls, sacred texts, talking about this reality for centuries, if not thousands of years. Think of the Brahmanas in the Hindu tradition and all that. So I think this is the world's worst kept secret, and the only people that aren't supposed to know are us.
Well, there are several other areas that I have been looking into recently in the last year. I don't recall if I mentioned this to you or not, but did I talk to you about? Well, let me grab it here because I don't want to screw this up. The
One should never screw things up.
Story, on radio. Yeah, the secret story of Adam and Eve.
Oh. No, I don't think we've discussed the same.
Well,
I mean, you know the standard cliche, right?
Oh yeah,
In every science fiction novel.
But this Dick was so shocking at the time that I got to say, for weeks after this, I dove into the web like I had not dove into the web in a long time. I came across a blurb somewhere on the internet about this story. A fellow by the name of Chant, I can't think of his last name, but he was an engineer that in 1963-64 was working on a book, this Adam and Eve story, and it's not what you're thinking, Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, etc. That's not it. But basically, it boiled down into his research into what he thought was a almost extinction level event that took place in approximately 11,600 BCE. All right. Now, there's a lot of attendant data that goes with this. But the book came out in 65. And guess what? The Central Intelligence Agency grabbed that book, looked at it, classified it.
Oh, I remember parts of this story. Yeah. Who brought it to my attention recently? Because someone has found an unexpurgated version of the real document, the real book, recently.
Well, this was something that I found astounding. Now, what does this mean? Now, since that has happened, there have been a number of areas in Europe and North America where it was discovered that approximately 11,600 BCE, the planet was hit by 7 or 8 cometary fragments. One of them hit in Greenland, left a massive crater under the ice. It was discovered through radar, overflying the area, discovering this thing under the ice. And basically, what they believe happened was when this thing hit, or these elements of this comet hit, it totally turned the planet topsy-turvy, created huge tsunamis, caused the ice to melt, and the ice caps covering Europe and North America, raising the sea levels. Then for approximately the next 1,000 years, the planet underwent another mini ice age. And finally, things subsided, it warmed up, and civilization began over. Now, this, surprisingly, when I did a little cross-checking, pretty much fits directly into what Plato was talking about when he wrote his, Critias, and, the story of cities and people. Basically,
Atlantis. Atlantis. The Plato Atlantis story.
Exactly, the Atlantis story. Now, as I delved more into this, it came up. Now, I have no way to verify this, but this was a reoccurring nightmare that has happened with human civilization going back 60, 70, 80,000 years.
Let me stop you there. You may not have a way of verifying it, but we do. And you're 100% right. This has been a recurring catastrophe, almost on a clock, because of the broken physics, the hyperdimensional physics of planetary existence around a star like the sun, et cetera, and something called precession and changing obliquity. And just to clear up one little item, and for a guy in the 60s to write this and almost come up with a complete scenario was really damn good. There's one small caveat. The meteor impacts, the 7 strikes of, comets or meteors, asteroids that cause these craters, they did not cause the world to tip over. It would be like barreling down a freeway at 70 miles an hour in an 18-wheeler and a gnat hits your windshield. I mean, nothing could disturb the planet in terms of those impacts. What happened is, in the physics, the world semi-periodically tips over, as do all the planets. Planets do not maintain steady spins in space with their axis pointed toward one star. That's the old Newtonian model, which is wrong. Planets alternate. I mean, currently Uranus is lying on its side at more than 90 degrees tilt to its orbit. The mainstream guys think all these things are caused by impacts, but they're not. They're caused by the internal spin dynamics of the planets rotating and orbiting around a star and their interactions in this higher level physics. And the hallmark of the hyperdimensional model is rotation, 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 which we have measured both in the lab and in the field. So with that caveat, what seems to have happened, and Don, this is really exquisite, is that simultaneous with the tip of the Earth and the slosh and the tidal waves and the catastrophic effects on civilization and the essential wiping out almost of everybody, somebody also directed 7 objects to hit the planet simultaneously, like making sure we were dead. So there must have been a war going on at the same time with antagonists and protagonists, and like all human activities, they basically fought it to a horrible outcome, and we've spent thousands of years climbing back up the evolutionary civilization ladder to where we're on the eve, bad news folks, of it all happening again. unless we figure it out and do something different this time.
So you believe that there were antagonists and protagonists out there that wanted to
I'm not talking aliens. I'm not talking aliens now. I'm talking this dysfunctional human family we're part of. You know, what are the worst conflicts on earth between? In families.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So in our model,
look at the American Civil War, for God's sake.
Exactly. So in our model, you have a high civilization, roughly 30,000 years ago, one of the more recent epochs of high civilization. This physics, 26 or so thousand years from now, before now, takes over and flips the earth. And in that cacophony, in that catastrophe, in that shattering, extinction event on the earth, folks that are not on earth, that are maybe on Mars, maybe on the moon, maybe on the satellites of Jupiter, Uranus, whatever, they take advantage of it and really drive the stake through the heart of the terrestrial civilization, like in an interplanetary war.
Well, I've always been shocked and amazed, not shocked, okay, just amazed at academia, all right? Because geologically speaking, it was an eye blink ago when North America was crawling with the Clovis peoples, all right? That's the basically the name given to human beings at that time, mammoth hunters. The fauna that was here was beyond belief. Things like the short-faced cave bear, an animal that could stand on its hind feet and go up 15 feet in the air, make a grizzly bear look like a kitten.
Yes.
Okay. Giant diurnal wolves, woolly mammoths, all these animals, saber-toothed cats.
Mastodons.
Mastodon. And they disappeared in an eye blink.
Yep.
And basically, nobody ever talks about that. It's like they want to forget it.
They do, but they're looking at the natural model, which is, this was really kind of crazy. When I was in school, they were claiming that these extinctions, like 11,000, 12,000 years ago, of all the what they call megafauna, occurred because our primitive ancestors who came across the Bering Straits on the ice, along the shore, and immigrated from Asia to North America, hunted them to extinction with spears,
ludicrous,
with Clovis points on them. And
ludicrous.
Of course, it's but you see, they're trapped by their own limited imagination. They can't think outside of certain boxes, certain strictures. So don't think too badly of them. They're doing the best they can with, as my grandmother would have said, their limited lights.
Well, I see it a bit more harshly. I see it as cowardice and afraid to look even just a titch outside the box, because it's all there to find. Now, when the status quo is disturbed, well, hey, I'll pick up there when we get back. Dick, we've got to take a break. Ladies and gentlemen, my very special guest this evening, Mr. Richard C. Hoagland. We got a heck of a lot more coming up. Stick around. We'll be back. And perhaps later in the show, I will have the phone lines open where you two can join in, speak to Dick, myself, bring up whatever. We'll be back.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to getthetea.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's getthetea.com.
For the thousands of wounded warriors returning from battle, Wounded Warrior Project has developed the Warriors to Work program, a career counseling service that helps wounded warriors translate their military experience to a civilian job. These extraordinary men and women bring more than just teamwork and inspiration to the workplace. They bring proven world-class job skills. And to ensure proper placement, Wounded Warrior Project works with employers to find just the right job fit. Talented, skilled, and eager to get back to work, you have the opportunity to hire a seasoned veteran. Contact Wounded Warrior Project at findwwp.org. Welcome home, the brave.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The new KGRA YouTube channel is now live. Subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to stay up to date on the latest major announcements, alerts on trading topics, exclusive live streams, live video cast, and that's just the beginning. Be the first to know what's coming from the KGRA TV channel in real time. So keep it locked in to your contact for alternative talk radio on the internet. Your KGRAradio.com. You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRAradio.com.
And we are back with my guest, Mr. Richard Hoagland. Dick, it's really great having you on again this evening. This business of talking about catastrophism and the way it has apparently affected planet Earth in the past, the whole concept of the biblical flood is a worldwide phenomena, isn't it? I mean, cultures all around the globe
that never had met.
Exactly, yes. So just that in itself would suggest that we have perhaps a primeval memory of this horrible, horrible thing that happened. Today, I don't know if anybody would survive if we were suddenly confronted with that. Do you? Dick? Did we lose Richard?
We may have. I don't hear him. He's on the call.
No,
there we
had to drop out. Sorry, I'm back.
Okay. So did you hear what I said?
No, I missed the last 30 seconds, I think.
I said, Dick, if this worldwide, phenomena of myths all across the globe dealing with this horrible event that apparently really did happen, if something like that were to confront us tomorrow, I find it highly unlikely, as technological as we are now, that anybody would survive. Do you think?
No, we're definitely toast. Unless we had a warning, which we do in a way, and unless we employed the physics I've been talking about as an active technology to simply keep the world from tipping over.
Is anybody prepared to do that? Is there any...
Well, I have suspicions that the government, the U.S. government, has been working on this since World War II. And obviously they're not going to admit to it. I mean, this would be top secret, because can you imagine if you told the world population that they were going to die, the effect it would have on social systems, on social cohesion? I mean, it would make Margaret Mead's prognostication in Brookings about the discovery of ETs, well, scientists won't want to get up in the morning anymore, look like a candle compared to an H-bomb. So you could not tell the world, but you certainly could divert an awful lot of resources secretly to try to do something about it. And when you look at the global spending since the beginning of the Cold War, that never resulted, thank God, in a hot war, it makes me suspect that an awful lot of that money has been secretly going into a way to keep this from happening again. I mean, I know the physics is there to deal with it. The problem is that physics has been bifurcated politically, so you have a mainstream that is clueless on this physics, and then you have a subset of top secret, ultra black ops projects that are working on this, and never the twain shall meet.
Well, this whole secret black budget project business has been somewhat of an open secret for the last 50, 60 years. I mean, when you look at some of those budgets, budgets that have been released by the Pentagon and what have you, spending $12,000 for a toilet seat.
Yeah, exactly.
And $800 for a hammer. I mean, that's simply cover-up.
Remember that great line in, what was it, Independence Day? Where the protagonist's father turns, forget the name of the actor, and he says, "Do you really think a toilet seat costs $12,000? And they're talking about Area 51. So if this is what's really going on, and an awful lot of what we're seeing, certainly in the news now, is distraction on distraction on distraction, I could create a model which says we are being kept in the dark, because if we knew civilization, a la Margaret Mead, a la the whole ET thing, Brookings, would fall apart, and then an awful lot of people who don't have to die would die as collateral damage, as social systems, literally disintegrate. And so the best thing they could do would be what they have been doing in this model, which is keeping this a deep, dark secret, working like hell to try to solve the problem and pretend that life is normal as it goes on, because there's nothing that you and I, or the people listening to us, can do about this. Zero. Nothing.
And even worse than that, there's nobody within government that even cares what we think.
No. That's almost irrelevant. Because again,
it is. But look at current day America. Look at current day America right now. Hell, Dick, right now we are on the verge. Well, I wouldn't say a violent shooting war, but this country is divided right now politically more than I have ever witnessed in my entire life. And in the last, 5-6 years, I have been totally gobsmacked by how our social construct has basically fragmented right down the center.
Mm-hmm. Kind of is almost biblical, wouldn't you say?
Well, I don't know about biblical, but it.
No. Think of the metaphors. Think of Genesis. Think of what happened when God wanted to destroy, human beings the first time. What were the attendant things going on around that event?
Well, the Nephilim, were coming down. This is biblical, of course.
Yes.
The sons of God were mating with the daughters of man. taking as many wives as they wished, having progeny that turned out to be the Nephilim giants of old that were, if you read other books that are basically not in today's Bible, like the book of Enoch.
The so-called Apocrypha.
The Apocrypha, exactly. The book of Enoch talks about these creatures cannibalizing human beings, eating men. Some pretty dire stuff. And apparently...
What was one of the major things that happened after all that? What did God do so that we could never rise again to assault, heaven, to assault the Godhead?
The Tower of Babylon, are you referring to?
Yes, the Tower of Babel. And what was it all
Babel,
about?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was about trying to reach heaven.
Yeah, but what did God do to keep them from reaching heaven?
Confuse the languages.
Exactly. Now think deeper. Suppose this is a metaphor for the inability of people to literally communicate with each other, even if they're using the same language. I'm going to be going into depth in this next weekend with one of my shows on the other side of midnight with a classical evangelical preacher and a first-class metaphysician. I had a brilliant idea, I thought a few days ago, that maybe what we read in Genesis has to do with not just language, English, French, whatever, contemporaneously, but something much more fundamental, which is if you have two groups of people looking at the same facts and coming to opposite conclusions, that really will do in civilization. You cannot have a democracy. You can't have a functioning society if people talk past each other and don't connect with each other. And we're living through that right now. And I think it's because of the physics, which is a precursor to the physical events that literally tipped the world over, 12,500 some years ago on our calendar, if the model is correct.
Well, that would be, to wake up that morning would be quite a shock.
Well, you wouldn't wake up. Huh.
Well, maybe for a moment.
No, and see, I have seen evidence ever since I got onto this of very important official level activities at the level of the technology and physics required to handle this that have been funded, sealed off under, black ops rules where even the Congress doesn't know what they're really funding. But somebody, I think, tonight is working on this, and that's the good news because it is a workable problem. It's not an act of God, it's an act of physics, and we can intervene, provided the resources have been working on this since World War II, which my evidence says they have been.
Well, World War II was roughly 75 years ago.
Yep.
I was just thinking, a friend of mine recently called me up to tell me about the movie he just went to see, 1917.
Oh, it's supposed to be brilliant.
Yeah, that's basically what he said. And I thought about that. My grandfather, my mother's father, was a veteran of the First World War. And when I looked at my calendar and I thought to myself, good God, that was a century ago and a couple. It's in a way, it's terrifying how quickly. And if you look at the technology that was available then as compared to today, it's beyond astounding. Now, I can remember as a kid, my grandfather telling me some things about that conflict, some of the technology that the Germans were working on then. Now, we're talking about 1915, 16, 17, 1918. where they actually had radio-controlled aircraft. They could fly those biplanes without a pilot, radio-controlled. They had the of course, it was huge. I mean, it wasn't like a little controller box you can hold in your hands. This was a big bunch of electronic or electrical junk.
Do you remember the early work of Nikola Tesla?
Well, I remember reading about it.
In the margin. The late 1800s, Nikola Tesla perfected radio-controlled boats that he publicly demonstrated in Central Park in New York City. So radio-controlled, remote-controlled drones, we'll hit it on the head, have been with us, as you just said, for over 100 years.
That's amazing, isn't it? And of course, I know you're probably very familiar with those stories coming out of Colorado and Nebraska about those mystery drones.
Yes. I've been following this because somebody is flying grid searches with 6-foot wide drones in a complicated computer-controlled algorithm, and they're doing grid searches. And Don, what does that say to you right away?
Oh, they're looking for something.
They're looking for something! Yes! And none of the official agencies even wanted to be bothered until the other day, according to a local TV station in Colorado, which I read the story on my weekend show, flew within 100 feet of one of these, Flight for Life helicopters taking a patient to the hospital. And so now the state police and the FAA and the local sheriff's department are beginning to kind of say, well, what the heck could be going on? They're looking for something.
This smells military to me, Dick.
Well, what could they be looking for?
It's hard to say. I could only speculate, but it smells military to me.
Okay.
It's got to be. It's got to be a military organization.
Well, all right. But that doesn't mean they're looking for something military.
No, I didn't say that. I said they're looking. I don't know what for, but they're looking.
In terms of an organization, a military-type organization.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Let me throw out a wild speculation for what they're looking for.
Do it.
Something under the alluvial soil of the ancient mid-continental ocean, which existed on this planet tens of millions of years ago, that is buried maybe under a mile or two of soil overburden. The fertile Midwest, those prairies of eastern Colorado and western Nebraska. And I think the timing is they're looking for either technology or a library, a time capsule that might help us in the current world tipping over scenario we just discussed.
Well, if that's true, if that's viable, okay, getting down a mile or so through that soil would be a real effort. But
not really.
Let me. Not
really. I just saw a story the other day off Angola. Someone's going to dig the deepest oil well under the ocean, going down 15 or so miles. So, I mean, drilling on land, a mile or two down, it's nothing. Look at the tunnel boring machines
they would
that are nuclear powered.
They would be getting a lot of interest if something like that actually happened. But let me stay in the same church, but go to a different pew.
Oh, my grandmother.
Yes. Let us go to the Antarctic. Now.
Oh, I love that because we just were there.
Yes. Now, here is something that I have been kind of keeping an eye on for years now. Ever since the discovery of that ancient lake, I believe the Russians found.
You mean Vostok?
Yes. I couldn't think of the name, but yes, Vostok.
The sealed-off buried lake, which apparently under 2 miles of ice had not been in contact with the rest of the biosphere for maybe millions of years.
Now, that caused me to sit up and go, oh my. Now, of course, getting into that and finding out if there are any life forms down there, and if there are, and I have no doubt that there will be, what shape might they have taken? But there's more. Wait, there's much more. Over the last several years, a lot of high-profile people have made trips down to the Antarctic, all very hush-hush, all the way from the royal family in England to our old astronauts like Buzz Aldrin. They were taken down there. It's all very hush-hush. Nobody's really talking.
Former secretaries of state.
What the hell did they find down there, Richard?
Well, I know. All right, and I talked about this on last Sunday night show. And if you want to see what they've been looking for, I'm going to show you a piece of video and some stills that we grabbed from a 1948 U.S. Navy film that was produced by MGM, narrated by Robert Taylor, Robert Montgomery, and Van Heflin, released to 80 theaters around the country on December 2nd, 1948, called The Secret Land. And it was the product of I don't know how many Navy and Army photographers using very high-level equipment to shoot Technicolor film of Admiral Byrd's Operation High Jump, which in the fall and summer and fall of 1946 was suddenly assembled in a record time. 13 ships, 23 aircraft, 4,700 men, the largest Antarctic expeditionary force ever sent to the South Pole before or since. And it came up to literally December 2nd, 1946, when there was a secret meeting in the Oval Office because President Harry S. Truman was dead set against high jump ever taking off. He had a 1-hour meeting on the afternoon of December 2nd of 1946, and when the Navy and Byrd came out of the meeting, he had agreed to let high jump go forward. And what they were looking for, I mean, they're kind of various levels of distraction and deception, and in the alternate community, it says, oh, high jump was going down there to confront the Germans, after World War II, who had built some kind of secret base and were, building UFOs and stuff like that. That may have been one component, but then you have to ask yourself, why were the Germans down there long before the beginning of World War II? And the bottom line is, what you can see on these images, which I'm going to give you a way to get to see them in a moment, they were looking for the remnants, Don, of the last epoch of high-tech, extraordinary civilization.
Well, that's what I suspected.
Human civilization. I can show you the ruins.
Well, but something apparently, Dick, kicked the hell out of that task force.
Well, that's another level of rumor. I'm not so sure.
They were supposed to stay down there for a minimum of 6 months.
6 to 8 months, yes, and they came back in 8 weeks.
The official word was that they were down there testing new Arctic equipment, which was pure poppycock. Pure poppycock.
Well, the idea was we were testing in cold, wet weather at the South Pole the kind of technology and operation equipment and parkas and ships and men and all that we'd be using in a war with the Soviets in the North Pole if the Cold War heated up to a hot war. That was the cover story. In fact, I think they went down there because the Germans had been poking around. They had found extraordinary libraries and technology, and we could not let them get that far ahead because you also have to bring in Richard Dolan now and the whole idea of a breakaway civilization and where they've gone in the last 70 plus years to live
Well, Walter Bosley has been working on that for years.
Yes.
The breakaway civilization.
Yeah, and I've talked to him on the show a couple times. He's a protege of Joseph Farrell. That's how I was led to Walter. It's all part of the same picture. Because if you go to, you're going to follow this URL now, go to theothersideofmidnight.com. Okay? And what you want to do is scroll down a couple, 3 items on the home page to Sunday, January 12th. Admiral Byrd's secret 1947 mission to Antarctica, the continuing mysteries of Operation High Jump. And if you have good eyes, even if you don't, you scroll down to Radio with Pictures. When you click on that banner, that will take you to the guest page. You will see stunning 3-dimensional color images of these ancient ruins. And they look done exactly like some of the ancient ruins we found on Mars and on the NASA New Horizons imagery.
Megalithic sized?
They're arcology sized. They're, thousands of square miles. They look like artificial mountains, except parts of them have eroded away so you can see into the guts of the interior.
Well, Dick, hold that thought now, because we're at the top of the hour. We got to take that top of the hour break. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight my very special guest, longtime colleague, friend, and associate, Mr. Richard C. Hoagland, is joining us. All of it, of course, is courtesy of KGRA Radio. And when we come back after the break, we got a heck of a lot more coming up. Stick around. We'll be back.
You can tug all day long on a carpet that's been glued to the floor. Then you hurt. There are many strong glues out there. Let's see, there's liquid nails and Gorilla Glue. You ever try to remove 3M 5200? That adhesive is strong. Then there's bathroom caulk, silicone rubber, adhesive tape, super glue, flex tape, and stickers. Graffiti. Scientists have come up with glues that stay stuck and can't be removed. Until now. Until Handyman Formula by DeBond. That's right. 95% of adhesives become unstuck when you spray Handyman Formula directly on them. Just spray, wait a few minutes, and remove. It's amazing. Most adhesives become unstuck when you use Handyman Formula. Visit DeBondCorporation.com or MCMaster.com. Call 561-575-4200. This stuff really works. Handyman Formula by DeBond, a great Christmas gift.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. I help people solve difficult and trying personal problems every day on my TV show, but there's one problem that's just got me stumped: childhood hunger. Nearly 16 million children in America struggle with it. That's 1 in 5 kids who may not know where their next meal is coming from, despite the fact that there's more than enough healthy, nutritious food out there to feed them all. Now, I don't know about you, but that is unacceptable to me. Luckily, the Feeding America network of good people is out there collecting surplus food and giving hope to hungry children and their families at local food banks all across the country. But let's face it, they can't do it without your help. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
KGRA Radio is your interactive alternative talk media. Sponsored by the Paranormal Radio app. The KGRA rolls out its new high-definition call-in phone lines. 855-472-5483. That's 85-KGRA-LIVE. The Paranormal Radio app hotline gives our listeners the ability to call in and interact with your favorite host. Post questions for the guest and win KGRA swag like t-shirts, books, DVDs, conference tickets, and more. Your interactive alternative talk media. KGRARadio.com. Mainstream media's most wanted. KGRARadio.com.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Hour number 2 with Mr. Richard C. Hoagland. Dick, as you heard off the air, I got slapped around by the producer because he's been sending me some questions, and he said, "Don, are you gonna look at those?" Well, I already looked at them, but we got caught up in so much excellent conversation. Honestly, it slipped my mind. But Bill, I'm back. I've got it. The first question was from Blue Orb in our chat lounge. I would love to hear Richard Hoagland's explanation for this picture. And Bill sent us what looked like the cat box or cat scratching photos, Dick, of the face on Mars.
Yep.
And a comparison to the current high-def mapping photos. Okay, now I can recall back in the day when NASA first, or was it, who was it? The guy that was, well, these photographs were obviously doctored, Dick. They were doctored. What's the diff between those and the current photographs today?
Okay, let me take you all back to 1989, within a few days of my birthday, and I was in Southern California doing a speech, and sometime within a day or two of that moment, Mike Malin, who was the official...
Malin, I couldn't remember his name.
The official project scientist out of Arizona, his own lab there. He's a kind of a one-man, band in terms of NASA JPL. He got the exclusive contract for NASA through JPL to produce the cameras for all the Mars-bound spacecraft.
And he also had final say on what was released, which enraged people across the board.
Well, yeah, because he was in charge of the imaging experiment, which, as PI, principal investigator, he had final say on what would be released to the public from these Mars missions. Anyway, these two pictures, this comparison, is the image of the face on Mars that we browbeat NASA. Art Bell and I conspired to solicit through his vast audience thousands of faxes to NASA headquarters, to the point where when the secretaries would come in the morning, they couldn't open the door to the fax room because the floor would be filled with paper from faxes all over the United States, demanding that NASA take new pictures of Cydonia, of the face on Mars, with their next Mars mission, which was called Mars Global Surveyor in the 1990s. Anyway, this is the first picture taken over 20 years after Viking of the face on Mars on the left. It's an absolute horrible, cruddy, worst possible picture you could take by NASA, by Malin, deliberately. And the right-hand comparison is an enhanced version of the same picture. This was the picture that when Art looked on it, he said, "Oh my God, that's more unrecognizable than the scratches my cats make in the litter box in the bathroom." So we called it the cat box image. And of course, when you compare now modern images from the European Space Agency, from Mars Express, from Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, from Mars Odyssey, there's no comparison because they've stopped doing this childish trying to make it seem like there's nothing there. But politically, it had a very chilling effect because no less an eminent geologist than Dan Rather, no successor to the guy I worked for, Walter Cronkite, pronounced on seeing this image, "Oh, it's just a pile of rocks." So, of course, it tainted the conversation for decades because everybody in those days listened to Dan Rather or Tom Brokaw or Peter Jennings and took their cues for how to view the world, free internet, from what the key opinion makers, these anchors of these major network news shows, would say about a given story. Talk about managed news. It's not so much managed as, the star system. You had a star, Dan Rather, leading CBS News, saying, okay, we've got new pictures. There's nothing there, nothing to see, folks. Go home and be quiet. And that's what people have done. Now, the good news is, with the internet and the rise of independent thinking people able to communicate with each other and ship images all over the world and form networks of, independent citizen scientists, we know that, again, NASA has been telling us lie after lie after lie. And tonight there really is the remains of an extraordinary series of civilizations on Mars, on the moon, on some of the outer satellites, and now, of course, because of relooking at some of the original high jump footage, even at the Earth's South Pole, which has been cordoned off by a treaty in 1958, the same year, by the way, that NASA was formed. In 1958, a whole bunch of nations got together and basically, walled off the Antarctic from any average citizen exploration. So the only way you can get there is through some official government sanction. And of course, they only will take you to certain places where there's nothing to be seen that would upset the current apple cart. End of rant.
Well, I was looking recently at a number of photographs that have come out of the Antarctic, and people pointing out. Now, I honestly, I couldn't tell, Dick. I'm not a trained observer in that type of stuff, but
wait. You're a damn good detective, and you don't have to be a trained observer. Just go to the other side of midnight and look at those pictures.
No, I'm talking about the so-called pyramids that are
They're
down
not so
there.
cool. They really are pyramids.
That's what I was. Let me finish. That's what I was going to ask you. In your opinion, are they actual pyramids similar to Giza?
No. Giza's small. Giza's on the order of 700 feet on a side. These things are man-made mountains. They look like mountains. They're lined up as chains in geometry. Whoever did this had staggering hyperdimensional torsion field physics. They were not built by a bunch of Mohawk Indians like skyscrapers in Chicago and New York. This was our own ancestors before the last fall, roughly 30,000 years ago. And the reason a high jump went careening to the South Pole, and Truman, who was originally opposed right after World War II, I mean, you don't remember, and I don't remember because we were just children. I was born in 45, so I was literally a year old when high jump was launched.
Well, it was before my time, so.
Okay, so I'm older than you, okay. The point is that Truman was opposed until Byrd, a 33rd degree Mason, came to the Oval Office to meet with the president, Truman, another 33rd degree Mason, and we have pictures of him in his full regalia on the other side of midnight on this polar show we did last Sunday night. And he turned completely around 180 degrees because Byrd obviously told him the real reasons for high jump, and suddenly the president was fully on board. And it's all about our ancient ancestors.
Do you think, Dick, do you think that there are still remnants of that civilization living inside?
You mean living people?
Yes.
No. It's all ruins, but it's libraries, it's technology, it's science, it's the capability of figuring out how to save the world from tipping over again.
Okay.
We wanted to have control of it and control of our own history so that the Russians and the Germans and anybody else competing with America would not have extraordinary advantage over us post-World War II.
Now, sticking with the United States military, okay, back in 2004, a rather amazing incident happened with the Nimitz aircraft carrier, where they were on a training mission. This is the publicly released version, and they encountered some flying objects that, quite frankly, knocked their socks off. Now, I got a question from one of our chat room users, Libertas, and he wants to know, Don and Richard, I believe the vehicle seen in the Navy by Commander Fravor, who was one of the pilots, video, are actually government vehicles. What do you think?
No. Emphatically no. If they were government vehicles, why would they be tooling around, playing around, going from 80,000 feet to a few hundred feet off the ocean surface in a matter of seconds, demonstrating a stunning technological advance over current contemporary mainstream technology in full view of an entire U.S. carrier battle group, including the radar guys and the average sailors and all that? No. This was someone demonstrating their military capability to destroy the Nimitz battle group if we got out of line. And I nominate the Dolan breakaway civilization, which, of course, are a bunch of Nazis.
So you think that this basically is technology from that alleged breakaway civilization? Well, when I talk to you...
It's all our own technology, because the Germans merely discovered these ancient libraries, probably in the Antarctic. They did a reconstructive engineering assessment of how to build with 1940s technology, based on the same principles, flying craft that were basically flying saucers, homegrown. And that's why when Byrd gave that interview to the press when the Olympus, his flagship, returned to Chile, and remember what he said in that set of interviews for the Chilean press?
No.
That the next war would be confronted by vehicles from the poles capable of flying between the poles at incredible speeds. He was talking about this technology.
Okay, now when I talk to you...
Then you know what they did with Byrd when he got back to Maryland, to Washington?
They told him to shut up?
No, they locked him away in Bethesda. They put him in Bethesda Hospital, a naval hospital, for mental evaluation because of what he had said publicly.
When I talked to you a week or two back, and you said, well, what topics are you interested in discussing? Yes. One of the topics I broached involved the so-called alleged secret space program. Now, you're talking about the possibility of technology from a breakaway civilization. We have our own secret technology. Now, yep. I was once told by an aviation expert that anything you see today flying around in the skies, and at the time, one of the things that was flying publicly around in the skies was the F-117 stealth aircraft. He said, you can add or tack another 30 to 50 years of technology beyond that. So I said to you, Dick, do you think the United States of America, our Space Force now that President Trump is moving to get that up and running, that we have secret technology currently that is in space, operating, doing who knows what? Do you think that's possible? And why, if you do, why would you assume that?
Well, the answer is yes, because when we talk about secret space programs, we have to talk about two secret space programs. And when I say secret, I mean they're not running on rockets. NASA's kind of like a false front western town, a Potemkin village. What NASA's doing in public is just more distraction. It's to make us think that there's been no advance in space travel for the last 5,000 years since Wan Hu, that Chinese emperor, invented the so-called rocket, fireworks. In fact, there are two secret space programs. One is out there, the breakaways, and the other is domestic. It's based here. Corporations, levels of DOD, multiple levels of security, distraction, disinformation, whatever. And there's been this uneasy truce for the last 70 years, a la Bird, between our guys and the Germans, the breakaway civilization that left Earth after the war. By the way, I've been trying to get Dolan on my show, and you saw the recent ratings. You know that I'm the fourth most popular paranormal show on the planet, a la TalkStream Live, right behind Nuri. Can you help me get Dolan to come on this show? Have you ever had him on your show?
Yeah, I interviewed Dolan a number of years back. Recently, this past year, to be quite frank, I told my producer I was interested in having him on. This was after the Eric Davis, Thomas Wilson brouhaha. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Eminently.
I wrote a paper about that. But Dolan was a little too busy to break away to come on Dark Matters Radio. So I had told Bill when he was talking to Dolan, I said, look, I have some insight into this business through a couple of contacts of mine, and it was good stuff, valid stuff. And I said, if nothing else, ask him to give me a call, and I can lay this on him. Never heard from him.
Anyway, Dolan did the groundwork on the breakaways. Paul LaViolette, a name I think you know, right?
Who?
Paul LaViolette?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah. Paul has written a stunning book on anti-gravity. I forget the exact title. You can Google.
I have a copy of it.
Right. It basically tracks all the top secret R&D work from Byfield Brown in the 20s forward that demonstrates overwhelmingly that the technological database for creating real anti-gravity spaceships, i.e. our own flying saucers, has existed in the U.S. military going back at least since the 1920s. 100 years, okay? These two fleets, after World War II, kind of equal, have been in a Mexican standoff. Think of it as kind of a interplanetary Cold War. And recently, I believe the breakaways, i.e. the modern Nazis, have been making inroads to try to take over, if not the Earth, at least parts of the Earth. And that's why this whole war on terror erupted in 9/11, and why it's been another false front Potemkin village, because the real war is not with terrorists on the ground, it's with terrorists from outer space, i.e. the breakaways challenging the elites.
Well, yeah, Dick, that very well may be, but let's not get too off the reservation. There are a hell of a lot of terrorists on the ground.
I didn't say that. No. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm saying they're the terrestrial shock troops behind the real war, which is upstairs.
Well, that's very interesting. And in that
now, let me tell you why.
No, wait. Well, let me read this to you. Let me read this to you.
All right.
This is from another one of our users in the chat lounge. This is from Neutron. In your opinion,
doesn't anybody on the web use their own damn name?
Hell no.
Why?
I don't know.
I use mine.
I go by Decker. I go by Decker.
Yeah, I go by Hoagland.
So anyway, in your opinion, are these generational family bloodlines of the original Nazi scientist from Project Paperclip that are part of this breakaway civilization?
And a lot more Germans. Remember, there's something like 250,000 Germans missing at the end of the war. And they were not accounted for by battlefield statistics or, domestic civilians killed in Germany at the end of the war.
Well, the Russians had a bad habit of capturing huge numbers of Kraut troops and German troops. And then at the end of the war, maybe 1 in 2 or 300 would come home.
I still think that could account for a lot of the bloodlines that were taken off planet. First to the Antarctic, where they had they found the ancient libraries and technology. And once you have access to space, remember Heinlein's quote, once you're in orbit, you're halfway to anywhere. So we've had 70 years of the 800-pound gorilla developing into the 3,000-pound gorilla. And I think that what Trump is really battling and doing an incredible job of distracting the Earth from facing, except for his one insistence on developing the Space Force, is a coming confrontation between us and our own family, human family out there that have had 70 years of independent breakaway civilization and scientific and technological progress.
So you suspect that at some point this breakaway civilization and our forces are going to have a confrontation?
I think we already have. We think of it as 9/11.
Well, yeah, they didn't use space-based weapons, though. They used aircraft.
No, they did not. That's more deception. Do you know a book by Dr. Judith Woods?
What's the title?
From memory. Something like Why the Towers Fell, or something like that. Just Google 9/11 Dr. Judith Wood and the book will pop up. I had a copy of her book hand-delivered to Jesse Ventura in Mexico several years ago. And then he went on various talk shows and talked about her work. It is a stunning tour de force, X-ray, CAT scan of the real extraordinary physics anomalies surrounding the collapse of those towers. That was not terrestrial technology. That was these guys sending the elites on planet Earth a message. Look what we can do. And all the handsprings our society has turned over in the last, years since 2011, 2001, are because we were confronted. The elites running this planet were confronted by an exterior force sending them an ultimatum, which is why this world has been transformed since 2001, and it's because we are facing a final ultimate confrontation. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting closer, and that's what I think Trump's Space Force is really all about.
So your thesis is that Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda and those 15 Saudi Arabians on those aircraft and 4 others from other places in the Middle East were basically working as surrogates for this breakaway civilization.
Exactly. And let me give you an historical comparison that I was going to do a moment ago. Go back in history and look at what happened with the mullahs in Iran. Look what happened with the mullahs in Iraq and how they all became acolytes for Adolf Hitler and his shock troops in the Middle East.
Right.
I think the parallel just continues. They're the diversion, the terrestrial diversion for public consumption for the real war going on between the elites and the breakaways upstairs.
Well, that's a somewhat inconvenient fact for many people that the Islamic mullahs in the Middle East and large segments of the Islamic populations were, in fact, hand in glove with the Nazis and Adolf Hitler.
It's total written history. Just read a few books, go through a few libraries.
Oh, I've been aware of that forever, Dick.
Yeah, maybe elements of your audience are not.
No,
now,
but I'm just saying that did not become a mystery for me.
Right. Okay. Let me extend the idea, the model. Remember, I talk in terms of models because I don't have overwhelming, convincing proof of these ideas. I have evidence, and I have a trail to lead to more evidence, but I don't have something that would, let's say, convince Walter Cronkite, if he was still alive, oh yeah, Hoagland, you go on to it, you figured it out. What happened after 9/11 planet-wide as a result? Think globally now. Think civilian populations. How was everybody on Earth affected by the events of 9/11?
Well, to me, the way I viewed it, okay, I received a telephone call that morning at about 7:30 from my friend, the actor Dwight Schultz. You remember Dwight?
Oh, of course. I think he's a fan of my work.
And he said, get out to the living room and turn on that TV. And when I did, and I saw what was happening, I knew then at that instant we passed a watershed mark. Now, I did not know all the things that would emanate from that. For example, the Patriot Act and a lot of other things, which I viewed as just another way for the powers that be to control us. Like currently in California now, they have a program called a Real ID. Vicky applied for one of these because you must have this now in order to fly in a commercial aircraft where, and this is the thing, Dick, that, and let me get on a little rant here. This is the thing that had me so irritated, I guess is the best way to put it. You've got to have your birth certificate. Okay, no problem. You've got to have your driver's license. If you have a passport, bring that in. Okay, all this material. And Vicky put all this together. She applied for one. We went out to the DMV, and when she got in there, including she has a military ID card from, my military service. They looked at all this and said, well, are you legally able to call yourself Ecker? And she said, yeah. Well, we don't know that. We have to see your marriage license. Okay, after all this other material, passport, identification, Social Security, the whole schmear. But yet, in this state, if you are an undocumented alien, they'll stick you on a damned airplane and fly you anywhere.
Well, once.
So, but I'm done with that.
Okay, okay, all right. Let me tell you again part of this model. After 9/11, at almost every airport in the world, you have to go through this elaborate screening process. Magnetometers, X-ray scanners, millimeter wave scanners, pat downs, sometimes, depending on what part of the world you're in, personal conversations with interrogators. All of this came about because of 9/11, right?
Yep.
You know what I think this is really all about?
I'm waiting.
Finding the extraterrestrials among us who, because of 70 years of living on other worlds and other planets, are detectable on these sensing mechanisms as apart from homegrown human beings on planet Earth. They're looking
At the risk of sounding a little woo-woo, I have suspected that for a hell of a long time. Not what you just stated, but the fact that there are those who walk among us.
Yeah. Now, this goes hand in hand with what the hell is going on in Colorado and western Nebraska every night since Christmas. What are they looking for?
Yes, the flights of the mystery drones. I'm not sure, but I got another good question here from one of our chat lounge users, Stephen. And Stephen has this.
Oh, congratulations, Stephen, for using your real name.
Yes, he always does. Ask Dick if he has one shred of evidence that points to any of these breakaway civilization people, not hypothetical, i.e., we well know the Nazis escaped and they had money and the Nazis researched technology. Therefore, there is a breakaway civilization of Nazis. Do we have any defectors, like a disgruntled Nazi breakawayer or whatever, who says, you know, what the hell? I've been living here for a long time. I watch the NFL. I eat McDonald's. I'm tired of secretly traveling between Antarctica and the moon. So, Dick, other than your thesis, do you have any evidence that suggests that this is real?
Well, yeah, but you're not going to believe it. So it's pointless because there's no hard physical evidence. There are just stories. There was a guy from Australia who started writing a blog several years ago claiming that he was a breakaway from Mars and, you know, there were colonies on Mars, et cetera, et cetera. And, of course, nobody believes him. Then there's the guy that was on Gaia. I forget his name. He hung out with David Wilcock, and there's been extraordinary stories. And, of course, who believes them? There are subcults. There are categories of people who follow their work seriously, but the main culture does not, because we're effectively set up that we don't believe stories. We want evidence.
Well, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. There are several guys, and I occasionally have some fun with them that, claim in their stories that when they were youngsters, like 7, 8, 9 years old, entities came into their bedroom, took not their physical body, but apparently their spirit, flew to Mars. They ended up joining the Martian Defense Force, the Martian Army, I guess, fighting aliens for 20 years, and then they bring them back to their home the same night that they took them and pop them back in the body, and we're supposed to believe that. Now, I mean, yeah, would you believe that? And I can remember, Dick, back in the 80s, when people were trying to get you to talk about UFOs, and you wanted nothing to do with that because it would taint your Mars research.
Well, I couldn't test any of it. You know, I like testable evidence. Like, look, for Stephen, go to the other side of midnight. Click on the banner for high jump. It's about 3 scrolls down on the main page. Click on that banner. That will take you to the guest page. Scroll down to Radio with Pictures. Look at those images of extraordinary ancient arcologies, man-made ruins, geometric structures partially covered by ice and snow. Look at the subsequent images below that Robert Morningstar, presented from current contemporary scientists taking pictures of things in the distance, beyond their base camps. If you are not intrigued with that geometry, if you don't think high jump is a doorway, the Secret Land, film is a doorway into what we really were interested in. Remember, now this is so accessible that one of our plans is going to be, we're going to task some of these private satellite imaging groups that have satellites in orbit, close Earth orbit. We're going to give them lat-longs to take modern current photography from orbit just a couple hundred miles up with long-range telephoto lenses, and we're going to show the world what's there now because based on this secret land film, we know Byrd out of the windows of those R-4D aircraft, which was the military version of the old DC-3. That's the reason they went to photograph millions of square miles to find out where all the ancient ruins were, so that subsequent expeditions could go back and find the libraries and the technology and become on par with what the Germans had a leapfrog on us just before the war, because they were down there doing this surveying before we even thought the Germans were going to be planetary opponents.
You want to throw the phone lines open, Dick?
Sure.
Okay, great. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to open the phone lines. If you'd like to join in tonight's conversation with Dick Hoagland, myself, if you have some thoughts, questions, whatever, give us a call at these numbers, 855-472-5483. That's 855-472-5483. Or if you're like me and you have a hell of a hard time remembering those numbers, 85 KGRA Live. And all of that is courtesy of the Paranormal Radio app hotline. And, looks like the calls are coming in already, Dick. So I'll wait till Bill gets a handle on this, and we'll see what is on their mind. Do you got any further speculation on our Space Force? You think we have gravity drives that are flying these things around up there? Is this part of the secret black budget? You there, Dick? Oh, did Dick drop out again? Oh, Dick.
I'm here.
Okay, I thought you dropped out again.
No, I had to mute because I had to cough.
Oh,
okay. And I don't want to cough on the air, so I muted Skype. And then, of course,
you're so courteous, Dick. You are really courteous.
I kind of do this for a living. Anyway,
we're gonna go to Texas. We got Mike.
Well, wait. Let me answer your question. Okay. The answer is yes. Just read Paul LaViollette's book. He's a mainstream physicist. I've known him for decades. He's done an incredible amount of work. It's called Anti-Gravity and something. Google LaViolette. I probably should do that in a break and give you the exact title. He limbs out all of the secret U.S. government military programs to develop real anti-gravity spacecraft in secret, totally separate from NASA, which again is a false front western town.
Okay, we're going to go to Mike in Texas. Mike, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Thanks, Don. Hi, Don, and hi, Mr. Hoagland.
Do you got something on in the background, Mike?
No, I don't. Maybe I was close to my cooler in my truck here. How's that sound?
Oh, okay. Okay, that's much better.
Okay, I can hear Mike.
Okay.
I couldn't hear him before.
Oh, okay. Hi there, gentlemen. I wanted to say hello to both of you, and I wanted to let you know, Don, I think this is one of the greatest shows that I've ever heard you do. You have an excellent guest on tonight. Thank you. And I wanted to ask Mr. Hoagland a question, please.
Sure.
Okay. Yes, about the Earth turning, if this is true, which I believe it probably is, because this sounds like it's like this is the cause for finding frozen mammoths with vegetables in their mouths and things like this, sudden freezing.
You got it.
You said, I think right. I think you had said that there's a possibility that they're working on trying to prevent this. I wanted to ask you if this is what you meant. What means would the governments possibly have to try to prevent the Earth from like tipping? Is there a way?
It's really excellent question, Mike. Excellent question. Because it sounds initially like it's totally impossible. How could you possibly keep a planet, the mass of the Earth, rotating from doing whatever it wants to, right? The answer is in resonance. Why does the Earth want to tip over? It doesn't want to. It's physically forced to by a dissonance in this physics between the Earth, its rotation, the sun, the other planets, and the field that we're all immersed in that used to be called the ether, and the Russians from their experiments call it the torsion field because it had to do with rotation and torsion, which means a rocking back and forth. The way they're trying to do it, and I've actually measured the effects of the technologies they've been secretly using, like HARP. Remember all the horror stories about HARP, that huge antenna complex up in Alaska, and then the other HARP clones around the world? Okay, well, that technology is part of the mechanism they're using to try to create resonance in a dissonant field. Because if you can maintain the torsion field resonance in the ether, then the Earth will not tip over. And it's a matter of cohering enough systems to create enough resonance through electromagnetic antennas, huge antenna systems broadcasting megawatts and gigawatts into the ionosphere, creating a resonance in the force, to use a term from Star Wars, as opposed to dissonance, which comes in semi-periodically when the alignment of the Earth with the sun and other planets basically gets out of whack, gets out of tune.
Dick,
So
what about the wandering magnetic north? Does that have anything to do with this?
Yeah, it's kind of a signature. All right? It's kind of a three-dimensional signature that we're about to have a flip. In and of itself, it's not important, but it's an indicator. And that's why Robin found for me a book out of the Defense Department and the RAND Corporation, published in the 1950s from one of the polar squadrons that the Strategic Air Command sent to Alaska to map the North Pole in 1946, which found evidence of this impending flip, and it suddenly was all hushed up, and it came out in this document. I don't know how Robin ever found it, but she gave it to me for a Christmas present, and I opened it up, and in the middle of this so-called Cold War story about the Strategic Air Command mapping the poles in opposition to the Soviets was buried this data indicating that the U.S. government and the Army Air Force, ultimately the Air Force, after the act that Truman signed in 1947, found this evidence of an impending flip, and even the RAND Corporation there in Santa Monica got in on the act, and there are experiments detailed in this book, which I don't know where you can find a copy, because she found this copy for me, and it's what led me to believe that while they were looking at this data in the Northern Hemisphere, at the North Pole, the same year, a few months later, suddenly Truman okays Operation High Jump to go to the South Pole, and that's where the ruins are, because of course there's no land around the North Pole, you just got sea ice, whereas you got solid continental bedrock to build things on in the South Pole. And what is it that Putin has been suddenly doing? He's been sending the Baltic Fleet to both poles, including the South Pole a couple years ago. And then you got all these personages like John Kerry and Barack Obama and the Orthodox Patriarch from Moscow, all traipsing to the South Pole, including Buzz Aldrin. And remember Buzz Aldrin's tweet after they had to medevac him out of the South Pole? What was his tweet?
Well, he indicated there was evil down there.
Evil! Yes, evil.
Oh, jeez.
You know how I knew that, Dick?
Evil.
I drink and I know things.
What was the possibility of this evil that he was referring to? Do you have any idea?
Suppose the breakaways in this war that I'm positing really want the world to tip over, and then 6-7 billion people go away, and we're no longer a problem for them, right? What if the evil has to do with who's controlling the technologies, the ancient technologies at the South Pole that might keep this from happening?
Okay, guys, I got to do my host
Okay,
thing.
thank you very much for your time on that answer. Okay.
Mike?
All right. Thanks a lot, gentlemen. Take care.
Thanks, Mike. Great question.
We're going to go to Louisiana. We have Ziggy joining us. Ziggy, good evening. What's on your mind?
Good evening. How you doing?
Good.
I had three things, and I was trying to put them all in order. But getting back to the towers in 9/11, wasn't it a couple of days before 9/11 that the Secretary of State came out and said that after an audit they were missing several $1 trillion from the Pentagon?
No, it was Rumsfeld. It was the Secretary of Defense. And it was several $1 trillion, and you're absolutely right. And there's a gal currently making the rounds. Oh, what's her name? She's been on Coast a lot. She's friends with Farrell. Oh, Don, you know who I'm talking about.
No, not offhand, Dick. I'm sorry.
Oh, I can't think of her name. She was part of the government accounting office or part of the Defense Department, and she agrees that this money was squirreled away, and then all trace of it was lost after 9/11 because nobody gave a damn.
Is she still with us?
Oh, yeah, she's very much alive. I just can't remember her name.
No, I was just curious. You know, she's out there perhaps talking out of school.
Well, but if you get really visible, Art and I talked about this years ago. Remember, they tried to kill me 20 years ago in Florida. They tried to give me an artificial heart attack, and they did. And I barely recovered with Robin's help and Art's audience and all that.
We ran a photo of you in your hospital bed.
Yes. Well, Art and I agreed that the only counteraction to these, ops is to be incredibly visible in public. Then if they take you out, people will ask dangerous questions. And these folks do not want questions, so they will leave you alone.
Okay, Ziggy, did that answer your question, buddy, or did you have something else?
that was one of the things. The other thing was you were talking about how the God with the Tower of Babel, mixing the languages up.
Right.
I think if they, the main thing was able to destroy communications, shut down television, cell phones, everything, where you had to go back to basically, not horse and buggy. You still have vehicles and everything.
No.
But if they could destroy some kind of communications where people couldn't
misunderstood
watch their
Ziggy,
cell phone all day long, you would probably drive yourself crazy.
Ziggy, you misunderstood. Yeah. I was talking at a much deeper level. It doesn't matter whether you have smartphones or computers or television or whatever. If two people are looking at the same information and they come to diametrically opposed conclusions based on the same facts, you have destroyed civilization. It's not a matter of the technology, it's a matter of the consciousness which is apprehending the information presented to you by the technology. And I think that's what's going on right now. People do not talk to each other, they're talking past each other.
And speaking of canceling communications, right now the state of Virginia is looking at that very thing, knocking out the internet, knocking out cell phones. Everybody is aware that there is a huge rally happening in Richmond, I guess at the state governmental offices, because of Virginia's attempt to cancel the Second Amendment. Guys, we got to get rolling along. Ziggy, thank you for your call. I got other phone calls waiting right now. If you'd like to join in, you're going to have to do it fast. Give us a call at 855-472-5483. And I am going to Stephen right now in California. Stephen, good evening. What's on your mind?
Hey, Don, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. I think the name that Richard Hoagland was looking for was Glenn Austin Fitz?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. And I just want to make one point clear. I was actually studying history at the collegiate level when all this was going on. When Rumsfeld actually gave that press conference, because we covered it extensively in class, he wasn't coming out and admitting that they had lost the money. In the context, you have to look at that statement in the context of the time. He was coming out very early on in the Bush administration, and that was almost an indictment of the previous administration. So when Rumsfeld stood up there, he was indicting the outgoing administration, saying, look, we've reviewed this, and we have $3 trillion or X amount of dollars that are unaccounted for. So it doesn't make sense that he would willfully disclose this to the press and then use that as grounds to blow up the World Trade Center. I mean, he didn't have to say that.
I'm not. I've never said it was.
But a lot of people do. They're like, well, isn't it funny the day after he said that 9/11 happened because he wanted to distract people from that revelation. And my point is nobody put a gun to his head and made him say that. And secondly, he wasn't saying that his administration lost the money. It was an indictment of the outgoing administration. So if anyone hid the money away, it was the previous administration.
Has been going on for decade after decade after decade since Truman. If the model I'm presenting is accurate, it means that the whole Cold War was, in a sense, a false front Western town. What better way to get two opposing teams of the best and the brightest on the planet to solve a problem than to give them a fake controversial confrontation, like a championship, like a game where you're trying to win, the final touchdown, than to put opposing teams against each other in a conflict where you want them to develop the best and the brightest, highest technology, pushing the physics frontiers at every different level, because you got a fuse burning. You've got a time limit. It's going to happen. According to Rand, it was going to happen within decades of when the Strategic Air Command Squadron 46 found this evidence in their North Polar surveys.
Gotcha. Now, do you think it would be in the best interest of these world global elites that are undergoing these sorts of schemes to actually create a massive global conflict, knowing, according to your theory, that there are these breakaways out there, these more highly technological civilizations, that if a conflict here on Earth got to the point where it was, no turning back, that they would then reveal themselves? So I think I sort of have a tough time, squaring those two. It seems like if I was the secret keepers and the elites, and I knew that there was these others out there, the last thing I'd want to do is antagonize them by trying to drum up these sorts of conflicts that very well might attract them and bring them into the arena, and the whole house of cards would come down, because then they wouldn't be the elites anymore. They would be subservient to these technological breakaways. Have you ever thought about that?
Well, I've thought a lot about all this stuff. That's why I want to get Dolan on the show, because he's got access to some of the information that allowed him to put this model together. Again, if you're dealing with competition at that level, and we're basically on par, our space technology is as good as their space technology, then the only way that they can, shall we say, accelerate their competition's downfall would be if, in terms of coincidence, the planetary system itself, with a little help, with a nudge or two, might accomplish the task for them without them having to do anything. Where
is the unnamed, unmentioned extraterrestrial visitors fit into all this, Dick? Because I don't know about you, but I have no doubt we have some.
You mean the true aliens?
Yes.
Well, you could look at it as they're observers. They're going to stand back and see what happens in this civil war, whether we win or guys upstairs win. Or they have taken sides, and some of them are on our side and some of them are on the breakaway side. I think that's legitimate. In other words, we don't have enough information to war game out all the possible scenarios, which is why I'm trying to get this out in the public so we start asking more questions and deeper level questions, including of the incredible distraction going on right now in Washington, D.C., which I think everybody, including Nancy and Trump and Schumer and all others, are actively participating in the world's biggest game show to keep us from focusing on really what's going on behind the scenes.
What was that, Stephen?
I just have one more final point. I appreciate Dick's insight and perspectives. I know I don't agree with him on everything, but I do appreciate the time he spent thinking about these, writing, and so forth. But I just wanted to leave you guys with this. I know that you were talking earlier about body scanners in the airport, and that was a great way to sort of detect possible off-worlders, so to speak. I believe that there's another situation going on, and if you've noticed that these hard seltzer drinks have become very, very popular. And it's my understanding that just like in the UFO cover-up live, the aliens like the strawberry ice cream, it's now understood that they like this alcoholic.
I remember that. That special.
They like the alcoholic.
They also like Tibetan bells.
They like the alcoholic hard cider or the hard seltzers now. So that's why you're seeing this massive push. So the government, they don't need the body scanners anymore. They're just going to track the global sales of the seltzer. And then they're going to kind of know where the populations are. And I know this because there's a guy with a blog in Australia, and he wrote about it.
Well,
so
guys, we are, believe it or not, out of time. We have gone right to the very top. Stephen, thank you so much. We'll be in touch. Dick, this has been a delightful 2 hours. It's not nearly long enough, but I guess there's nothing left for it except to extend the invitation to come back.
I will come back if your audience will come over to the other side of midnight tomorrow night, 10 o'clock my time Mountain, 9 o'clock Pacific, because we're going to have an update on the high jump show we did last weekend.
Okay, very good. And I'm always available if you want to get into it with something, let me know. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be back tomorrow with our open line show. It's my understanding that Commander Cobra from Task Force Griffin will be joining us. In the meantime, keep your eyes pointed up, keep your ear to the ground, just to get an idea of what's happening. And we'll see you then. Dick, thank you.
Thanks, Don.